Hello, so right now what I want to do is I want to show you how to do two other sort of cool techniques that you can use to make your light diffusing fobs even a little bit cooler. One of them, of course, is going to be to add text, which is a little hard to see on here, but in fact it is actually saying something, but my camera doesn't catch the contrast very well. And two is how to be able to merge solids, either a solid that you import or a solid that you create. So in this case, there's a sphere that was pushed into the top of this sort of pyramid, which made it have a kind of a cool shape to it. Okay, so to get started, I'm going to go ahead and once again, I'm going to deal with the millimeters template. All our printers work on millimeters. I'll get rid of this lady here. And I'm going to build everything on a 20 by 20 millimeter square. So I'm going to snap to the origin. I'm going to draw it out. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to click it. I'm going to type in 20, comma 20. And I have now a square, which is 20 by 20 millimeters. We'll zoom to extents, so we get kind of an idea of where and how that is. And I might as well go ahead and make it a cube. So I'm going to drag it up, type in 20, and now I have a 20 by 20 cube. All right, so in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to import a sphere. It's really difficult to get a good sphere drawn in SketchUp Free, but there are plenty of good ones that you can download. So I'm going to go to Components, and I'm going to type in sphere and see what I can find, and I'll just grab this first good-looking one right here. Now notice I'm going to actually put it right here in the endpoint, the origin, and you can see the blue lines. It indicated that in fact it did actually paste it here. But the problem is the sphere that I placed in is relatively large as I zoom out. Okay, so it is roughly, I'm going to click the tape measure. I'm not actually going to click again. I don't really want to draw a line, but we can see it's like 23,000 millimeters. So I'm going to sort of clear that. What we want to do then is scale it down some. I think I'll start with bringing it down. I'm going to hold the key on the control. I'm going to drag a little bit. Let's scale it down to 0.01 to get started. All right, so that gives us at least a little bit more realistic size of a sphere. And even still, you can see it's huge compared to our, our invisible 20 by 20 cube. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to move it a little closer so I can work with it. So I'm going to grab this move tool. I can just hit the M on the keyboard as well. I'm going to click someplace on that cube. And then if I'm lucky, I'll be able to get it to actually link to something on it, my drawing that's already existing. But you can see that the drawing that I've already done is so small that the probability of hitting it is relatively slight. So I'm going to kind of get close. All right, now I'm going to zoom in some more. And I still can't even, well, I can barely see it. I'm going to try to find another spot that I can click on. And so this is probably a bad idea. Let me click here. I'm going to go down here and click on something on the edge and see if I can get it. Oh, there we go. I found it. So it snapped onto endpoint. So now at least it's in the same sort of working zone. And you can see it's still very large. So let's scale it down again. Let's figure out how big it is. It is roughly, I'm going to click, and I'm not going to click again. I'm just going to guesstimate here. So we'll bring it down by another factor of 100. So let me go ahead and choose the scale button again. I'm going to hold the control key to scale it to center and drag it a little bit, and let's make it 0.1. Okay. So now at least we're getting to a more reasonable size. It's almost the same size, I think. In fact, it should be just a little bit larger. Let's click on this. We'll get kind of a ballpark idea. Yeah, 22. So what I want to have is something that fits comfortably you know, on top. So I'm going to scale it by another factor of maybe half, you know, bring it down to 0.5. So we'll get this out of here. And let's scale it again. And let's bring it down, drag it a little bit. I'll type in 0.5, enter. And now I have a nice small sphere that we can deal with. Let me go ahead and move it a little closer to my object. I'm going to grab some point at random and get it in here. Because what I really do want to do is I want to try and find a spot. Zoom out and then back in to kind of center it. I want to be able to catch a spot on the top center if I can. And then I want to move it. Sometimes this can be tough. You're working with three-dimensional space. I want to move it into the center of the cube. That looks pretty good. I clicked on it. And well, now what I want to do is I want to bring it up some. So I'm going to take hit the O. You can see just a teeny bit of the cube sticking out of the very top. And I'm going to click M because I want to move it some more. I want to get right on that sort of midpoint. There we go. And I'm going to pull it up. Oh, sometimes it can be really hard. I might need to use the orbit key. I'm going to move to a different position. I'm going to hit the M key, and it remembers what I was doing. Well, that's exactly what I want, is in the middle. I'm going to hit the orbit key again. And again, this can be tough. I'm not going to lie. You're trying to play a game where you can kind of work in a three-dimensional world on a two-dimensional screen, and it oftentimes gets confused with what you're trying to do. And I think I'm pretty happy with that. Let's take a little. No, I'm not. Well, let's take a look. Am I in this? That looks pretty good, actually. Not too bad. I think I'm pretty close to center. I might. Yeah, oh yeah, I could see I can need to move it over a little bit. Let's click on the M key again. And I'm going to move it just a bit. There we are. And then we'll spin down. Well, I don't want to spend a huge amount of time playing with this. Because you don't want to watch me spend a huge amount of time playing with this. But you've got the idea. You can sit there and fiddle with it. I could draw some reference lines across here to help me find center. But I think this is what I want to do right now. I want to make this kind of a quick demonstration. I'm going to click on this surface now, and I want to scale it. And I'm going to hold it to center. And let's bring this in. Oh, I might have to move it a little bit more. Yeah, you can see I'm not quite center. Well, it's actually pretty good. I might just, well, we'll try one. We'll try one more. I'm going to click on the object. Oops, click on the object, hit the M key. I'm going to find a midpoint, and I want to move it over. Just a bit. Oh, keep snapping. Well, again, you don't want to watch me spend a huge amount of time playing with this. So let's stick it here and go ahead. All right, because it's just a demonstration. Now I've got my sphere placed on top. And the next thing I want to do is I want to add some text to it. So I can do that by clicking on the text key. And let's go ahead and make a George. Now keep in mind the character height, right? 305. That's huge, right? Our whole block is only 20. So I'm going to make it much smaller. I'm going to make it 3 millimeters high. And the extrusion would be the depth, you know, how far they stick out. Well, I really don't want them to stick out very far. I'm going to make them stick out only 1 millimeter. Okay, because if I stick out very far, it's going to really be difficult to print because they'll just drip down. And I should look on this straight on. And let's kind of get this guy into center. Like so. And let's do it again so we can get the school on here. And what used to be a real challenge was getting these things to line up. But fortunately, the new software, you can see it actually automatically assumed that I wanted to follow on the angle. So it's sitting on there very nicely. And there you go. So now we've made ourselves a nice sort of fob. Maybe I'll make this top just a little bit smaller just because I can. And we'll make it scaled down just a little bit more. Sorry about the sirens. It's a volunteer fire department. Let's make it right there. Okay, good. Now we will save as. I'll just save it as GS2. And I'm going to export it. As an STL file so we can do some 3D printing. And there you have it. So let me check on my time and maybe I'll be right back. Hold on a second. I knew I forgot a really important step. So if you look, we've got a sphere which is just floating in a solid. All right. What we need to do is we need to make sure that sphere is part of the solid. So I'm gonna right click it. So first thing I did is I highlighted it. All right. So now my sphere is in fact selected. I'm going to right click it, and then I'm going to go ahead and select intersect faces with model. And you're going to see what's going to happen is right here a black line is going to appear. Okay, so now every point in which this sphere was making contact with this surface, it is now a defined line. And that's going to be very important when we get to actually making a 3D model of it with the 3D printer. Okay, so now I've got this set up. I am now going to go ahead and I'll resave it and re-export it. And then what I'm going to do is open it up briefly in the 3D modeling software. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's go to Repetier. We're going to load. And we're going to go with GS2, open. And notice how this is actually, you can see our George School stuff is showing up right now. This is red. It's giving us a problem. It's not exactly sure what to do. So if I hit this button right here, hopefully within a short period of time, it's going to fix all of these joints which are not fully fused. And in fact, it did perfectly fine. Slice, and we're going to slice it. And you can see the completed thing right here. Spin it around. But if we look at it by layer, you can see this is what would actually happen. It would print all these layers individually and eventually build the object. Okay? So hopefully that was useful, and I will see you again